It is Wednesday, August 6th, and we're going to have a conversation about how and why we stay loyal to past versions of ourselves and what we can do to heal and transform and move forward. Welcome to Wednesdays with Gene. I am the eponymous Gene Montrestelli. We are here at 11 a.m. Eastern Time every Wednesday, doing a little tapping, talking about how we can get the most out of our tapping tool set. It's an absolutely awesome tool, and as much as we love it, it's one of those things we don't use nearly as much as we would like to. So we have conversations here every single week on how you can access and get into the tool set and use it more often, not just know how to use it, but to get more out of it each time we engage with it. Like I said at the top of the show, what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time talking about the loyalty we have to previous versions of ourselves and why that loyalty can supersede and get in the way of the transformation that we actually want to achieve. But before we do that, we always like to start out each time we get together, taking a few moments, putting ourselves into our body. And so what I want you to do is we're just going to take the next minute and a half and just do a little wordless tapping. So just move from tapping point to tapping point in the order that makes the most sense for you. And as you do it, just notice, just witness what's going on in your body. I mention this every time, but it's true for me. When I scan, I oftentimes stop at my hips and I forget to scan my whole body. So just tap and notice. Nice big stretch. Oh, and if anything came up inside of that little tapping that we did, insight showed up, issues that you want to tap on later, make sure you grab those things. Make sure you jot those down. If you're looking for a way that's easy to do that, if you go to tappingtracker.com, I actually have a free tracker waiting there for you. There's a 30-day, there's a 90-day, there's a PDF, there's a Word document. You can tap right into it. This is built off of the exact document that I use every single time I sit down to tap. It is so important and is so valuable for me to grab a hold of insights and things that show up in the middle of these particular sessions. If I don't write them down afterwards, the only thing that I'll remember is something really cool came up in my session, and I'll remember there is something to remember, but I will not remember the thing that I'm actually needing to remember. So tappingtracker.com, absolutely free. Download it. Again, it is exactly what I use. Before we jump into the topic today, just a quick note of the calendar. Next Wednesday, we're going to come back here. We're here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. We're going to be talking about why you keep tapping on the same issue over and over and over again. Like I said at the beginning of all of this, my goal as of late has really been not more sophisticated ways to tap, but making sure that we're tapping more often. If we feel like we're stuck in a rut and we keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, then we stop believing in the tool set. So we're going to have a conversation about that I think is going to reframe your relationship to issues that come up over and over again. So mark your calendar. We will be back here at 11 a.m. next week. Awesomeness. So with that being said, let's talk about this sense of loyalty that we have to previous versions of ourselves. And you might not necessarily think about it in those explicit terms. You know, when I'm facing resistance, I'm oftentimes not thinking of it in terms of loyalty to a previous version of me. And so what I mean by this is there are times in which For me to act in a new way, what it requires me to do is to acknowledge that a previous version of the way I was acting is something that no longer serves me. And like when I say that, that is the conscious, intellectual, in the moment way of doing it. But in reality, when we're thinking about, we're making a change, what we think is, oh, the past version of me is wrong. Because I'm doing it in a new way, that must mean the new way is right, therefore the old way is wrong. And the thing that this fails to take into account is context. It fails to take into account that what was most useful back then might not necessarily be useful for me today. And I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say, and this is something I've worked lots and lots with clients around, let's say you grew up in a household where there was inconsistency. That for whatever reason, one or both or whoever was taking care of you was not showing up in a consistent way. Like I could act the exact same way day to day and they respond differently. You know, some days I act a certain way and my guardian, my parent, my caregiver is loving. On another day, I act in the exact same way and they're angry. And another day, I act the exact same way and they ignore me. And so we learn very, very early on, since the environment is unpredictable, and I don't know if being noticed is a good thing or a bad thing, we learn not to be noticed. We learn to keep our head down. We learn to be quiet. We learn to be a good little boy or girl because that's safe. It's an amazing strategy that's really, really useful in that moment. The problem becomes, as an adult in a work environment where I'm trying to connect with colleagues and contribute and maybe even get promotions and get more responsibility, if I'm in a circumstance where I'm acting, I need to be small and unnoticed, that's the antithesis of what I need to do to be successful in that environment. And so the tool and the strategy that I was using in the past is no longer useful in the moment because the context has changed. And actually, in September, I got a whole new training that's coming. It's going to be a full day training on this idea of context because it's coming up over and over again. Because it's not about, is this the right thing for me to do? The question is this the right thing for me to think, feel, believe, or act based on the moment, the context, the resource state that I am in, the things I have access to, what I'm trying to change, what I'm trying to achieve. All of those things are constantly in flux and in movement. And so I'm going to make choices differently. And you already know what it's like to respond differently in context. I have a brother and a sister who are close in age, and I will have the exact same conversation with them in very, very different ways because the context of the relationship, because the context of their personalities. And so intellectually, it makes a great deal of sense for me to want to change the way I'm acting because I'm in a new context with new resource state. It makes sense that the tools I was using in the past might not be the useful tools for me today. And all of that becomes true as we engage with that. But the problem comes when we are doing that. What happens is it can feel as if I am making change because the past version of me was wrong. I am making a change because I was wasting time and energy before. I'm making a change because I was doing something that wasn't right for me. And so you can see how it becomes really easy for us consciously or subconsciously not to want to be able to change. Because as much as I want to change in this moment, I don't want to look at the past and think I did a bad job in the past. I don't want to look at the past and think I failed. Part of what happens oftentimes when we are tapping, and it actually already happened this morning when I was working with someone, is that after we have healing and transformation, there can be this giant wave of grief that comes along with it. And the reason why that wave of grief comes along with it is there's a part of us that's going, why didn't I start sooner? oh, why didn't I make this change sooner? Why did I stay stuck in this for so long? Why was I so stubborn headed about this? And so this sense of grief and sadness comes up because in the healing, we start to perceive missed opportunities. Now, in some cases, there might have been missed opportunities. And in other cases, the new version of me wouldn't have been useful to be the old version of me. And so as I'm creating change, by creating a change, I'm not being disloyal to my past self. Instead, I'm doing just the opposite. I'm celebrating my past self that helped me survive that thing, which has now given me the opportunity to be in new ways. You know, there have been so many generations through history who have worked really hard to make it easier for the generation that comes after them. The younger version of me worked really, really hard so that the later version of me didn't have to work as hard, even though it was just trying to survive, which allows me to be here and allows me to engage with this in a different way. And so as we are bumping into resistance to create a change, so if you're in a circumstance where you're trying to create change and you're hitting this wall of resistance, is to give yourself permission to recognize that the resistance can sometimes be because we're afraid what we're saying about the younger version of ourselves. That we're saying they wasted their time, they wasted energy, they were making bad choices, we were navigating the world in the wrong way. So the tapping we're going to do today is going to be in response to that. And so I have 5 little steps. You're going to see me look down. I want to make sure, like, this is tapping that I naturally do as I'm working my way through this stuff. And it doesn't have to be in this order, but I wanted to make notes so I didn't miss anything. So everybody tap on the side of the hand. Take a nice big deep breath. And what I want you to do is I just want you to tune into a younger version of you. Tap on the collarbone. And just recognize that that younger version of you is just there. And so the first step we're going to do is we're just going to do a little tapping of love and appreciation. And I'm just going to call the younger version of you younger. You might have a specific date. You might have a specific moment involved. But I'm just going to say younger. Address them however it makes sense to you. Tippy top of the head, move from point to point. I recognize the fact the younger version of me was doing the best that they could based on the situation they were in, the resource state they were in, the skills they had, and the information they had. And I just want this younger version of me to know that I love and appreciate them. I love and appreciate them in the context that they lived in. I love and appreciate them because I am them. Now, the second part is we're going to acknowledge that they were doing the best that they could with what they had. And I recognize the fact this younger version of me was doing the best that it could with the information it had, with the amount of control and agency it had, based on the situation it was in, based on what I know now, based on what I can do now. I might have acted in a very different way back then. But it is unfair. And it is unkind to judge that young version of me through the lens of today. I give myself permission to appreciate the fact that this younger version of me actually figured it out without the knowledge and skills that I have today. Now, the third step in this is we're going to give the younger part version to no longer be responsible. I want younger to know it did an amazing job trying to keep me safe. And I want the younger version of me to know it is no longer responsible for taking care of me in this way. The younger version fought really, really hard for me. And the present version is now taking over that responsibility. I appreciate the work that it did. Based on its limited understanding of what was going on. Based on the limited resources it had access to. Okay, and the step 4 is we're going to give it permission to just not be responsible at all. I give the younger version of me permission to just be the younger version of me. I give the younger version of me permission to be a child. Permission to be responsible for nothing but itself and its own joy. I give it permission to just be younger. Last step is we're just going to ask the younger self if it needs anything. I want the younger version of me to have permission to let go, to release, to not be stuck. And I give it permission to ask for what it needs. I give it permission to ask for what it needs. And now I want you to just listen. What does the younger version of you need? Space, love, connection, companionship, whatever it is, just hear it. And as you hear it, just give it space to create that. Also, let it know that this is not the only time it can ask. If it needs something in the future, it can ask then as well. And just repeat after me. I want the younger version of me to know it is cared for. I want the younger version of me to know it is loved. I want the younger version of me to know it is always home with me. Collarbone, side of the hand, tippy top of the head, big stretch, maybe a yawn. Oh, grab some water, jot down some notes. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. Jump into the chat box, either live or on the replay. If it's replay in the comments down the bone, if you're live, jump in the chat box. What resonated with you? What connected with you inside of that? You know, the process is we're loving and appreciating the younger version of ourselves. We're acknowledging it did the best that it could. We're relieving of it its responsibility as the adult version takes over. We're giving it permission to be free. We're asking it what it needs. Joy and huge trees to climb on. Absolutely. That is definitely what a younger version of us needs. I love building playgrounds and play sets and reading nooks and all of the things the younger part needs. Awesomeness. Excellent. So come back to this again and again. The moment you feel stuck, the moment you feel like I'm wanting to be moving forward, but for some reason I can't, one of the reasons why that happens is we're loyal to this previous version of ourselves, and we are afraid that if we change, what we're going to do is we're going to have to consult and admit the fact that we were wrong in the past. And that's a hard place for us to be. I don't like to be wrong. I don't want to feel like I wasted time. And so subconsciously, sometimes it's easier for us not to engage with that. So we're going to be having lots and lots of conversations over time here about how we get ourselves to tap more. Tomorrow, make sure you check the podcast feed, tappingpodcast.com. We're actually going to do some tapping similar to this, but on a different reason why we're not sitting down to tap and tapping more. And that's because we're actually afraid of being successful with the tapping that we're doing. So make sure you check your podcast feeder or the YouTube channel for that particular thing. Awesomeness. Well, that's all really, really, really good stuff as we can engage with all of this as we move forward. So as a reminder, we're going to be back here next week to talk about why we keep tapping on the same issue over and over again. A couple of footnotes for you. Tappingpodcast.com, like I mentioned, you got the entire back catalog. We got a really fun one coming out tomorrow. Tapping Mastery Academy, if you want to join us, tapping Q&A/TMA. And if you want to hit the playlist of all, what are we at? This is episode 32. If you want to go back and tap along and learn along with any of the 31 previous episodes of Wednesday with Gene, just go to WednesdaysWithGene.com, and that will take care of you with all of that sort of stuff. So awesomeness. Excellent. Lots and lots of good stuff there. Thanks for sharing your insights over there. Great. I was angry in tapping, but they asked for time. That's such a lovely insight. So awesome. Come back, revisit this again and again. We are going to be back here every single Wednesday at 11 a.m. As you look at the screen, if you're watching this after the fact, you can see the entire playlist that you can click on, go back and tap along with stuff. Make sure you come and join us next week as we talk about why we tap on the same issue over and over again. Have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.